Hello, welcome one and all to episode 120 of A Stitch in Time. Today is Tuesday, November 26, 2019. My name is Carol, my Ravelry name is Knitsnpurls, and I am coming to you from my home in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, not too far east of Vancouver. Thank you to both new and returning viewers for spending some time with me today. I had planned to record last Tuesday as I normally do, but unfortunately my daughter came down with a stomach flu, and so I spent a few days looking after my younger granddaughter while her mom tried to recuperate. Both she and her older brother had the same bug the week before, and very thoughtfully, or not so thoughtfully, passed it on to their mother. And then this mother was hoping really hard that her daughter would not pass it on to her. And knock wood, cross fingers, it looks like it has passed me by. Although you might hear, sound like I have a bit of a frog in my throat today, and I've had the sniffles the last couple days, and this morning my ears were feeling really full. I took a decongestant and that seems to have helped, but I have a feeling that maybe I'm coming down with another cold, so I'm also hoping that that doesn't turn into anything too bad. I actually did record on Friday, and it was a mess. I just couldn't get my rhythm. It was choppy. It was full of mistakes, including the number of the episode, which I proceeded to write on show notes and everything. I had 110 instead of 120, and I just decided to scrap it in the end and start all over fresh today. I actually have quite a bit to talk to you about. I have been releasing my newest sock pattern, or I actually did publish it this morning, so I will talk to you about that. I have a finished project that I did not expect to have the last time we spoke, and I have several works in progress that I will talk to you about as well. So first things first, a reminder that the Elsa Socks Knit Along is coming to an end. It closes this coming Saturday, November 30th. There is both a chatter thread and an FO thread, and I will be drawing prizes from both, and I will announce them on my next regular episode. So for those who don't know, Elsa is a pattern I released, I don't know, 6 weeks, 2 months ago. It's a lacy sock pattern. You can find it in my Ravelry shop or my Etsy shop. I will be awarding one of these sock project bags to each winner, one from each thread. Did I say that already? You can see it features this sock themed fabric, and it is the perfect size for a pair of socks. So it's not too late to enter, and you don't even have to complete a pair of socks in order to qualify to win in the chatter thread. So if you're interested, go on to my go over to the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group and check it out. And as I mentioned, I have a new pattern to introduce you to. I've decided to call these socks Cariboo Fall. The Cariboo is a region of British Columbia, and that is where our family cabin is located, and that is where the photo shoot for these socks took place. My husband and my mom and I took part in the photo session. It was freezing cold. We all sacrificed some body temperature in order to get the pictures taken, but it was all worth it. I'm really pleased with how they turned out. So I'll tell you a little bit about the socks. If you've been watching for a while, you've seen this design unfold over the last several months. So this was my first sample that I started with. Cariboo Fall is a top-down sock pattern that features this textured lace pattern, has a traditional heel flap and gusset and a rounded toe, and it comes in 2 sizes. The small fits an average woman's foot, and the large will fit an average man's foot. Of course, your mileage may vary depending on the circumference of the foot of the person that you're knitting the socks for, but that gives you a starting off point. So this particular one features a garter cuff, which picks up the garter stitch that's in the lace pattern, and as you can see, I've knitted in a gradient yarn. This particular yarn is sushi socks from Ocean Wind Knits, and the sushi socks are 2 gradiated sock blanks that come in a set. I was in touch with Lori, the dyer behind Ocean Wind Knits, and unfortunately she is not dyeing that yarn anymore and doesn't see herself doing so in the foreseeable future. But any of her merino fingering weight yarns will certainly do. And of course there are other gradient fingering weight yarns out there in the market, but that gives you an idea of how it will look knit up in a gradient. And then my daughter Jessica very kindly knit up this sample for me in a more solid yarn, so that gives you a sense of how it looks in a more solid yarn. This is also a size small, and this one was knit out of Sweet Georgia Yarns Tough Love Sock in the ginger colorway. Not much more to say about that other than you can see more solid, how it looks in a more solid yarn. And then as I was working on my small sample and thinking ahead to the large sample, I decided that this stitch pattern would be equally appealing to both men and women, and I asked my husband if it was a stitch pattern he would wear, and he said yes. So I decided to knit a man's sock for my large sample. As I was casting them on, I found the garter cuff a little bit loose for him. Now, part of that's the knitting, part of that is just his leg, his long skinny legs. I noticed that my garter cuff is a little bit looser than Jessica's, and that's just our tension. They both fit, just one's a little bit looser than the other. So anyway, I thought that I would offer a ribbed cuff option for those who both prefer the look of a ribbed cuff, and also for those who might want a little bit of a tighter fit if they're finding the garter cuff looser than they'd like. So this sample is knit out of Black Cat Custom yarn in the Golgothon or Golgothan colorway. I'm not sure how to say it. And as you can see, features this ribbed cuff. What else did I want to say about this? My pair, my husband has size US 10.5 feet, which also translates to the foot. His foot is 10.5 inches long, and I used a full 115 grams for the sock, or for the pair. So if you're knitting a larger men's size, you might want to take maybe 1/2 inch off the leg length. All of these samples were knit with a 6.5 inch leg, just to make sure that you have enough yarn, and I have made note of that in the pattern. So I also want to thank Susan, who's SCC on Ravelry, for test knitting her own pair of large socks for her husband. So thanks again, Susan, for that. And Jessica, of course, I've thanked in person, but we'll thank her here if she's watching. She sometimes does. So if you are interested in purchasing the Cariboo Fall sock pattern, it is available in both my Ravelry store and my Etsy shop. And the address for my Etsy shop, I'll put it here. It's also available at the beginning credits. And I have enacted a 25% off discount for both pairs of socks that I have for sale on Ravelry and Etsy, and that is valid until next Tuesday, December 3rd. And you do not need a coupon code. It will be activated automatically on checkout. So there you go. There's the three of them together. So if you'd like to, interested in knitting these, head on over to one of those shops. I am also going to hold a giveaway for one pattern. That is being held in the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group. I am going to open up a giveaway thread there, and I will announce the winner on the next regular episode. So really simple, just leave one comment per person in that thread, and you must be a member of the group to win. So if you're interested, go on over and enter there. Okay, let's get into the regular part of the episode, shall we? Gonna take a little sip first. And I can feel my nose dripping. It's a really nuisance kind of thing. It's not a full-on where I need to blow my nose and I can clear it all out. It's just this constant drip, which is way worse than having a stuffy head that you can at least clear periodically. It's been driving me nuts. Anyway, so what I have to share with you this week is my Sunset Skies shawl by Helen Stewart. As I say, I did not expect to have this finished. What happened is last time I recorded, I showed you the butterfly shawl by Marin Melchior, and I showed you a second one that I had started. Well, I got to a point on the second one where I needed to think about it, and so I put it down and I picked up some other projects while I let that other one marinate. So this is the one that I picked up, the first one I picked up. So I had done all the color section, and all I needed to do was the bottom plain section, which was mostly garter stitch interrupted by some lace rows, and so it didn't take me too long to finish up once I picked it up again. So I'm going to hold it back here and like this so you can get a much better look at the overall shawl. As you can see, it features, it's a long crescent shape, elongated crescent. It's quite wide, about 7 feet wide, and it features these bands of gradiating color. And as you can see, on one side they start from sort of thick to and go to thin, using a short rows to achieve that, and then the last three are thicker on the side and thin out towards the other end. The yarn I used is Knit Picks Stroll for the most part. I used the Bear colorway for this main color, and then I purchased a set of mini skeins called Sunset, which was the Stroll, I think is made up of Stroll tonals, and so that was worked out great. I thought it fit the name really well and the theme. But then when I went to cast on, I realized that I needed 6, not 5 colors of the contrasting yarn, and there were only 5 in the mini skein pack. So I went through my stash and I found this orange. It's some Yarn Chef Minestrone. I think the color was Carrot Juice, and I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same yarn base. The yards per gram were the same, or yards per gram, or meters per gram, yarns per weight, you know what I mean, and it has exactly the same feel to it. So if you didn't know it had been added in, I don't think you would know. I think it fits in really well with this color scheme. So being a long crescent shape, I'd probably wear it something like, you can probably hear my furnace kicking on. It's a bit cool out. Actually, it's quite cool out today. It's sunny. but the wind has started. We're supposed to be getting a few days of Arctic outflow winds, which will bring the temperature down considerably. And there's snow on the mountains. It looks like it rained overnight, but it fell as snow on the mountains. So there's snow about halfway down the mountains today. It's very pretty, but you definitely feel a bit of a chill down here in the valley. Whenever there's snow on the mountains, you always do feel it down here in the valley floor. Anyway, probably wear something like this, or of course you could just drape it over your shoulders like normal. I'll leave it on for a minute anyway. All of a sudden I'm a bit cool feeling, although I was fine before. So that, I don't know if I mentioned, that is the, I think it's the 4th shawl in the Shawl Society 4, maybe the 3rd one, I've lost count. But it is from Helen Stewart Shawl Society, her latest collection. The next shawl in that series I haven't even really looked at. I feel like it's, I think it was done in a heavier weight yarn, and I don't usually have that type of yarn in my stash. So, and I've been busy with other things, so I haven't really paid a lot of attention to it yet. One thing I have been working on, as I always do, is a pair of plain vanilla socks. And so I showed you the yarn last week. This is West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply. This main part is the Candy Cane colorway. That is number 989. And then I used this complimentary skein, the red. Its color is 510 Cayenne Pepper. It's also by West Yorkshire Spinners, as you can see. And I did the complimentary heels and toes. As you can see, I placed the red strategically, or I placed the heel strategically where the red stripe was. It started with just a little bit of red and the white, and then very serendipitously, happened to end exactly where I needed to start. The toe was exactly where the red yarn was going to start, and so it gives a nice balanced look to the sock. So I was happy with how that turned out. It wasn't sure how it was going to work out, but I couldn't have planned it better. So I do have one finished, and then I immediately cast on the second one, and I've gotten that far. So I'll continue to work on those as time permits. Have some lip gloss on, and it feels like it's sticking. I hope it's not over my teeth. It just feels a little bit stickier than a normal lipstick, so I'm quite aware of it. As I mentioned last week, I had showed you the beginnings of a second butterfly shawl. And I'm calling this one my stained glass butterfly because I'm using black as the contrast color and some really bright jewel toned yarns as the main colors. I think last week I had just finished the first section. And I did continue, as I mentioned last time, I was really addicted to knitting on my first one, and I immediately started a second and was plugging away on that. And then I got to a point where I decided, I think I want to switch out the purple and the blue. Once again, I think the colors on the monitor, on the screen, coming out slightly more garish and less jewel toned than they are in real life. This color in particular is not as red as it looks, at least to me. It's actually a deep fuchsia. And interestingly enough, The yarn itself the yarn label did not have a color name on it, just a color number. And I was thinking to myself, I called it a deep fuchsia. And then as I was entering the yarns into Ravelry, lo and behold, the name of it is deep fuchsia. So that gives you a sense of what this color really is. It's not quite as red as it looks. And I decided that I thought it would look better with the purple, which is it's called Iris. And I think that's a good description for the color. I feel like it might look better next to this pink, and maybe it'll make it look even more pink once it's there. And then switch the blue here. So I've been thinking about doing this. When it started occurring to me, or the ideas started coming to me, I put it down and just stopped working on it for a while, because I didn't want to impulsively rip it all out and then regret it. But the more time that's gone by, the more convinced I am that I want to switch it up. So I haven't yet taken the time to take it all out, but that is my plan, is to frog it and start over and mix up where the colors are. It is a super fun pattern. This is how it looks when it's all knit up. And my first version was more similar to this in that I used a long color changing yarn and not individual colors for each section. You can see a picture of that one on my Ravelry projects page. I don't think I yet have photos for this one, and I'll wait now until I switch it up. I'm trying to keep up with pictures, but I find I do tend to fall behind in that department. Just honestly, a lot of times I'd rather knit than be on Ravelry working on that kind of stuff. So I tend to put those off. I also have to remember to take photos when I have good light, and that's unpredictable. You never know, if it's sunny or not, or bright enough or not. We've been lucky, actually. We have had some rain, and actually had a big wind and rainstorm Saturday night, I think it was. Yeah, and the power went off for a little while, but since then it's been nice and sunny again, so can't complain. So another project I picked up while my butterfly was sitting there is my Granito, which is a sweater by Joji Locatelli. This is all I have for a pattern page, and even if it was in color, it doesn't really show it well, so I'm going to put a photo in here of what the sweater will look like when it's finished. I am knitting this from, I don't have the yarn label here, I'm knitting it from Malabrigo. Oh, back up. The yarns for my butterfly shawl, I'm not going to list them all off here, but they are listed on my project page. Anyway, this yarn for my Granito is Malabrigo Arroyo in the Jupiter colorway, which is a combination of reds and pinks. And again, I have a feeling this is showing up a bit brighter than it is in real life. It's more of it's closer to a burgundy than a red. Oops, just dropped one bag. I have 3 Ziploc bags that I have yarn coming out of them because I am alternating skeins. I started out in the portion that I knit back and forth, I started out alternating 2 skeins every 2 rows. And once I joined for working in the round, I've changed that to alternating 3 skeins, 2 rows each, to give a more pleasant or less obvious color change, because the different skeins did have a fair bit of variation. Sorry, the camera died. As I was saying, I am alternating 3 skeins every 2 rows just to try and make the knitting more uniform, the color more uniform, because the skeins did have quite a bit of difference to them. So, let's see if I can hold it back there. Here's where I am. You can see where those white pieces of white yarn are hanging down and there are gaping holes. That is where I set aside stitches for the pocket backs, and then I cast on the stitches for the pockets themselves, and have carried on knitting down the body. As you can see, the pocket top has a bit of ribbing there. You can also see that there are columns of slipped stitches that run down each side front and side back, and then the pockets sit between those columns so that they sit on the side of the sweater. I am getting to the point where I just have 2 or 3 more inches to do on the pockets, and then I will do, I think it's 8 rows of ribbing. So I'm getting close to finishing the body. Confession, I actually already finished the body once, and then I tried on the sweater and I found it bigger than I liked. Not much of a surprise. I tend to stay away from loose fitting tops, especially sweaters. And I don't mind loose fitting clothing as long as there's some shape to it, and I found it just a bit too loose and boxy for my liking. But I still like the style of the sweater. I just wanted it to be a little bit more fitted. So what I ended up doing is ripping back to kind of the bust line, and I incorporated over the next 6 inches, I just incorporated 4 decreases per side, just to bring that side panel, which was straight, just to bring it in a little bit. And then once I divided for the pockets, I've continued to knit that area straight. And I put half of the sweater on a separate needle last night and tried it on, and I am much happier with how it fits. I think it will be a comfy kind of, you know, round the house on a cold day kind of sweater, and it's certainly soft, feels really good. But just having that little bit more fitted just makes me like it a lot more. It has drop shoulders, as you can maybe see there. That might give you an idea. So then once I finish the body, I have to do the sleeves, and as I say, the pocket backs. I am afraid I may not have enough yarn. I don't think I'll know for sure till I knit one sleeve, so there's a possibility that I'll have to buy 1 more skein of yarn, and hopefully the yarn, if that's necessary, hopefully the skein I get is not too dissimilar from what I already own, so that there won't be having to do too much monkeying around in order to make it fit in. If it's quite a bit different, I'll probably rip back the sleeve I've done and incorporate that yarn into the sleeve, both sleeves. So we'll see. Anyway, love, love, love the color. As I mentioned, it's a little bit deeper than what it shows up. I think it shows better actually in the background than in the foreground. So that gives you a little bit better idea, but it is still a little bit deeper still. Yeah, very happy. Very pleasant to knit. It's just round and round and round, and other than those 4 columns of slip stitches, only slip them every 2 rows. Other than that, it's just round and round with stocking stitch. So great one for, watching TV and stuff. I did some sewing this week. I actually did some sewing yesterday. My younger granddaughter, I had sewn her and her older sister nightgowns for Christmas 2 years ago. And so she was here and said, "You know that gown you made me? Would you make me another one?" It's like, "Oh, you mean your nightgown?" Yeah. So her birthday's just a few days after Christmas. So I asked her if she wanted it for her birthday or Christmas. She said Christmas. And I asked her what color, and she said purple. So I found this pattern by McCall's. It's 7221. And this is the view that I made for her. So I shopped for fabric on Sunday, cut it out, and sewed it yesterday. Very simple pattern. So this is how it turned out. So this is purple fabric with purple hearts. It's hard to get it all in the picture, but you can see it has a gathered cuff, flared cuff. And there's the headline is shaped like that in the front and back, and has these ruffles on it. Fabric, the flannelette just feels so soft. Hopefully you can get a good look at it from here. Again, color is a little bit off. It looks kind of pinky in the screen. It is an actual light, kind of a lilac color. Not quite as pinky as it shows. But very pleased with how that turned out. It's been a little while since I've sewn a garment. And it was quite pleasant to do so. So that's it for the crafting part. I haven't included a what am I reading section lately, mostly because I've just been continuing to read through my Agatha Christie. Let's try that again. I have been continuing to read through my Agatha Christie collection in order of publication. And since I last included one of these sections, I've probably finished another 3 or 4, but it gets a bit boring to talk about after a while. However, I did start a new book this week. My sister pointed me towards it a couple of weeks ago. It was on for a daily special on Amazon for the Kindle. It was something like $2.99 or $3.99. And I'm not sure how this book escaped my notice as it is. It's called The American Dreams of Laura Ingalls Wilder by Carolyn Fraser. It was published in the fall of 2017, and it won the Pulitzer Prize for biography or autobiography last year, 2018. Considering my interest in Laura Ingalls Wilder, I'm not sure how it didn't come to my attention. But in any case, it is really an excellent work. If it wins the Pulitzer, that has to tell you something about the quality of it, right? So as the name suggests, it is a biography of Laura Ingalls Wilder. And it's quite a scholarly work, lots of footnotes, very well written. One thing I'm really appreciating about it is that it contains a lot of historical context for Laura's life. So not only does she talk about what she and her family are doing as her life progresses, she's framing that within what was going on historically in the United States and in the areas where she lived in particular, which is definitely providing a more complete picture of her growing up and the factors that may have influenced her as a person going through certain experiences or witnessing certain events in history. So I am at the part of the book where the family has now moved to De Smet, which is where Laura Ingalls Wilder spent her teen years. And I'm enjoying the read. Even though it's what I would call a scholarly work, it's certainly very readable, and a more adult version of some other biographies that I have read. So yeah, I'm just really enjoying that book, and I'm glad that my sister pointed me towards it, or I still might not know about it. So I guess that leads us to what's been going on around here. As I mentioned, poor Jessica was sick last week, quite ill, and so I enjoyed spending time with my little granddaughter here. She's just about 5, and I just love listening to her. One day she said to me, can we make shapes on your printers? Do you remember, or on your printer? Do you remember when I was here and we made shapes on your printer?" And I had no idea what she was talking about. And I'm trying to figure it out, and she's like, "Here, I'll show you." And so she starts to walk down the hall, and she heads past my office, and I said, "Oh, that's where my printer is." And she said, no, this one." And so then she came into this room, my craft room, and pointed at the sewing machine. And then I realized what it was. She had been here a couple of weeks ago, and I had my sewing machine out on the kitchen table because I was working on a quilt. And I had, on a piece of scrap fabric, I had sewn bunch of different of my fancy pattern stitches for her. She would pick it out, I'd sew it for her. So that's what she wanted to do. So we sat down at the sewing machine and did that again. But yeah, making shapes on the printer, no idea. And then we had some macaroni for lunch one day, and she wanted to use the box for to craft, do a craft. So she wanted to make a tunnel for her hamster. She had it all visualized, so I just helped with the scissor, but she's, "Come on, Grandma, let's get crafting." It's just so fun. I just love this age. Quite cute for sure. Not tons going on, actually. Other than that, we did this past weekend, Friday night and a good chunk of Saturday, we took part in a volleyball tournament for charity. We've done it for a number of years, and it's very casual. You kind of keep score with the other team, but only for the games you play. You play in 45-minute blocks, and just play for fun. Don't have to record your scores anywhere. It's really just to get together for a good cause. Bring an unwrapped toy, and then the entrance fees from each team go towards children in the community. And so it's a good cause, lots of fun. Got together, we had two teams, a group of friends of ours put two teams in. And we ended up playing each other the last game, so that was fun too. And then a bunch of us went out for lunch after. So yeah, it was a good weekend for that. I got some Christmas shopping started. I feel like I'm really in control, which is probably a really dangerous thing to say. But I've got a good chunk of things I either ordered or purchased or made for family members. So I just, at least of our immediate family, I still have to, I have on my side, I have my brother-in-law's name for Christmas, and he actually has mine. So this brother-in-law in particular really likes my felted slippers, so I'm going to see if he is in want of a pair of those again. Usually when I have his name, that's what he requests. And so I'm going to check in with him. And then we haven't drawn names on Cameron's side yet, so I'm not sure who I have there. So as it sits right now, I don't have any for sure making that I need to do for anyone else this year. We'll see how that goes, because usually just when I think I don't have any Christmas knitting to do, I figure out 4 things that need doing. We'll see. So December starts next Sunday already, if you can believe it. I am planning to do Vlogmas again this year. We'll see how that goes. I think last year I missed quite a few days just because life happened. But my plan this year is to do it. I have a couple of different Advent projects planned. One is I have a skein of Advent yarn. Can't remember the, might be in here. Can't remember the Cozy Knitter. I have an Advent skein from there, and then I have a holiday mini set from Fiber Nymph Dye Works that I will open one each day. And I think for that project, I purchased Helen Stewart's Knit Vent again for this year. And the project that she included for mini skeins is a little throw. And I think that that might come in handy, not just as an article to use, but also as a fun one to knit. Because if I was to do, say, a shawl with them, depending on what colors the yarns were and how well they went together, I may not ever really want to wear it, where a little throw I would certainly use. And then it's less, doesn't matter as much how the yarns all match each other. And I signed up for the combination, so I'm going to have different yarn bases, so like just a plain one, a tweed, there'll be a tweed, there'll be sparkle in there, and so especially having all the different yarn bases, I think they'll look better in something like a throw than in a shawl, or even a pair of socks. If I'm already doing the other socks, I don't want to have two going. So that's kind of my plans as far as Advent knitting and Christmas knitting. Don't have any right now. We will see. That's probably it as far as planning for the immediate future. I'll continue to work obviously on my candy cane socks, and once I finish those, I may or may not cast on another pair of my West Yorkshire Spinners Christmas yarn, because by then I probably will have my Advent yarn on the go. I do have, want to finish my Granito, and then maybe I'll look at starting a new sweater. I don't know. It's all up in the air. I love the idea of all the possibilities, though. So stay tuned and you'll see. I also have Christmas fabric I want to do a quilt out of. So maybe I will start that too. Whether or not I finish it for this year is another thing, but I might start that. So I do love the idea of not a lot of obligation crafting to do, and the idea that I can kind of work on what I want. So that's a lot of talking about a lot of knitting. I don't even know if I'm going to do or not. Before I say goodbye, I'd like to wish all my friends in the United States a very happy Thanksgiving. I believe that's coming up on Thursday. It seems strange that it's later this year. It's usually sort of a little bit earlier, isn't it? Or it seems like it's a week earlier normally. It's often somewhere around the 25th. That is, yesterday was my younger sister's birthday. Today is my uncle's birthday. The 28th is my brother-in-law's birthday, the one that's married to my younger sister. So there's a bunch of birthdays all close together this week, and they usually fall around Thanksgiving. I have so far been really resisting the various Black Friday sales, both knitting related and non-knitting related, that I've seen popping up all over. I feel like as far as yarn goes, I recently acquired quite a bit, both with Knit City and then with some then my Christmas things coming in, or my Advent yarns coming in, Christmas and Advent and other things. So I just don't have this huge desire for more yarn, which is good for my pocketbook. And I am just looking forward to sort of working with some of the things I have. Okay, I think that's it. If all goes well, and as we've seen from last week, it doesn't always go as planned. If everything goes as planned, I will see you for a regular episode again next Tuesday, at which time I will announce the winners from the Elsa Knit Along and the Cariboo Fall Socks giveaway. And look for me before that. I do plan to do Vlogmas again this year, so I will try and put out a little mini episode every day, or at least most days. So I'll look forward to that. That's a kind of a fun way to count down to the holiday. So wishing you all well. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all the feedback this week. I always appreciate it. I think I've gotten back to everyone now. I realized I'd missed a couple, and I've caught up with you now. I do love hearing from you. I really appreciate the little notes you send my way. So thanks for that. I wish you well in return. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.